Welcome everyone to today's CSIA business webinar, Making the Most of Your Annual Strategic Planning. My name is Colin Hammond and I'll be your host today. For those of you who are unfamiliar with CSIA, we are a global nonprofit professional association with over 500 member companies in 40 countries. Our mission is to advance the practice of control system integration to benefit our members and their clients. Our vision is to ensure that manufacturing and process industries everywhere have access to low-risk, safe, and successful application of automation technology. CSIA membership offers members access to resources needed to attain and exceed business goals. To highlight just a few of our many member benefits, the CSIA Best Practice Manual guides control system integration companies in the setup and running of a solid company. CSIA's business insurance program offers members an excellent insurance program for business owners, subcontractors, and more. The program includes members from all over the world enjoying the peace of mind that comes with CSIA insurance. Clients in all industries are now seeking integrators with a CSIA certification alongside ISO. They recognize CSIA certified integrators' commitment to industry standards and business acumen. As a result, being certified can shorten the sales cycle. CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange is the premier automation guide featuring system integrators and suppliers who provide industrial manufacturing and process automation solutions. For integrators and suppliers, it's a place to market their expertise. Clients will find white papers, case studies, capabilities, contact information, and engage in conversation directly with CSIA members. Please follow CSIA's online events calendar for all upcoming webinars, including both partner webinars and business webinars. CSIA's business webinars features topics handpicked by CSIA leadership to help you run your business. CSIA's partner webinars are opportunities given to CSIA's industry partners to address hot topics and demonstrate their expertise. You won't want to miss these opportunities to learn from the comfort of your office or own home. For information about CSIA, please visit our website or contact us at info@staff.controlsys.org or 847-686-2245. And at this time, I would like to introduce our speakers. Jack Barber is a senior business consultant with Exotech. Jack brings 30 years of experience during his tenure at National Instruments, most of which focus on building the NI system integration business as the Alliance Program Manager. In his Alliance role, he recognized the critical importance of assisting Alliance partners to gain the business acumen necessary to manage and grow their organizations. He also spent 7 years in NI Global Services and Support to deliver large-scale solutions to NI's most strategic and demanding customers. Don Robert brings almost 40 years of domestic and international systems integration experience to the position of principal at Exotech LLC. Due to the diversity of his professional experience and his commitment to the future focus of the industry, Don has become a leader in providing guidance to control system integrators as they steer their companies through periods of significant growth. In addition to sitting on the board of a number of companies, Don also is responsible for performing business-level audits globally to assess companies' compliance with the CSIA certification program. Prior to joining Exotech, Don managed one of Canada's largest control system integration businesses. He has served on advisory councils for Allen Bradley, Digital Equipment, and one of Canada's leading high-tech universities, the University of Waterloo. He served on the Board of Governors of Gonzaga College and acted as an industry advisor to several automation courses at the college. Many companies such as National Instruments and Phoenix Contact look to Don for advice on how he can best work with their system integration partners. Don is a frequent speaker at a number of conferences and is an active support of the CSIA. He is a regular judge in the Control Engineering Magazine System Integrator of the Year Award contest. Don has been involved in the negotiations of a number of mergers and acquisitions in the control system integration industry and provides executive-level coaching to many company owners. And with that, I'll now turn it over to our distinguished presenters. Welcome, Jack and Don.
Thanks, Colin. Well, thanks, Colin. Hello, everyone. This is Jack Barber. For those of you that are not familiar with Exotech, we are the only company that focuses exclusively on business consulting for the control system integration industry. In addition to being well known for our collaboration with CSIA to found and develop the best practices and certification programs, we offer a variety of consulting engagements to meet our clients' needs. Today, CSIA has asked us to talk about making the most of your annual strategic planning process. Sorry, just trying to get the slides to advance here. Just give me a second. Awesome. In Vern Harnish's book called Scaling Up, he states that companies can get by with sloppy execution if they have a killer strategy or highly dedicated people willing to work 18 hours a day and 8 days a week. Now, in Exotech's experience, far too many integrators rely on the latter. And if so, as he notes at the end, you'll end up burning not only cash, but your people if this is your process. Now, admittedly, there are folks that think strategic planning is just a waste of time and that they just don't have time to do it. But according to an on-strategy research study, organizations that commit to the strategic management process show a 12% bottom line increase and an 11% top line increase greater than companies that didn't. Now, we provided this slide here to simply state what strategic planning is. But it's also important to consider what it's not. First of all, it isn't a magic blueprint of the future or a guarantee of success. So we argue that it shouldn't be a long, drawn-out process, something that you kind of dread, to create something that you feel like needs to be etched in stone because change is inevitable. So we, as we'll talk about today, we want to provide you some tools and suggestions for how you can annually go through your strategic planning process, but then more importantly, have it integrated into your operations so that you can, get updates and movement on your strategic plan throughout the year as opposed to something that you kind of create and then realize it's just sat on the shelf until you dust it off again the following year. John, you want to add anything there?
Yes, just one of the things that we noticed about this industry, and I think it was brought up by actually one of the integrators that I was working with. No shortage of great ideas in this industry. The challenge is that everybody gets caught up doing their day job, and execution is one that suffers. So one of the things that I think is really critical when you're looking at your strategic planning is making sure that it's not just, like you said, something that you write and throw on the shelf and look at it a year later. It's got to be a very active and dynamic tool that you use.
Okay. So we often get the question, what is the best way to go about strategic planning? Our first recommendation is get away from the office. There's a huge difference between daily management and strategic planning. By getting away from the office, you can not only avoid interruptions and distractions from daily management responsibilities, but it also creates a more open environment when you step away for your leaders and you to have a frank discussion about your business. Also, by stepping away, you create a unique opportunity to make adjustments to your company plans and operations, because afterwards you kind of have a clear delineation. You can come back, inform your company, okay, we've met, careful consideration, these are the goals that we've decided, and perhaps these are some changes that we need to make to the organization to make those happen. So by creating a separate event, you kind of get that opportunity, if you will, to introduce new goals and make changes in kind of a definitive way. We also get asked who should be involved in the annual strategic process. One of our suggestions is if your entire leadership and ownership resides completely within the company, that it can be an excellent idea to get external people involved. Note that doesn't require expanding the ownership itself, but just having in your strategic planning process someone who can give you an outside perspective, someone that's not involved in daily operations, so that you can, test your ideas. For one thing, it'll keep you honest and force you to justify the business plans that you're making to somebody that's not involved in the day-to-day activities. And you'll have someone that can, challenge assumptions and offer perhaps a fresh perspective than those that are consumed in the business itself. That external advisor could be a vendor or a customer that is familiar with your business and your market, but you do want to be careful that that's not going to create a conflict of interest, and still allows you the freedom to make your business plans as you would wish. Secondly, you might consider a business person in your community that you respect or admire. If you don't know someone, one suggestion is talk to your banker. He may be able to offer you some suggestions about people that respected that might be interested in helping you craft the direction of your company. Anything to add there, Don?
Yeah, I think there's a great quote from Albert Einstein. Says something like, the problems of today cannot be solved with the same level of thinking that created them. So I've always found that as soon as you start to bring somebody else in to look at the company from the outside, it's amazing the different perspective that they have from the people that are on the inside.
All right, let's move on. So now we'll move to taking a look at some of the common tools that are used for strategic planning. So the first tool, probably the most common tool for analyzing businesses is the SWOT, which looks at your relative strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, it's important to note that you can perform a SWOT analysis on any aspect of your business, including your business as a whole. For your markets, you can consider, who are you serving, how well are you serving them, and then what are your relative strengths, weaknesses, any opportunities or threats with respect to each of those markets. You can do a SWOT analysis on your assets. Are they being captured? Are they being leveraged? Are they being protected? Are you investing enough to grow the ones that are really have the most business potential for you? And you can do a SWOT on your organization itself. Is it structured to execute your business plans effectively, whether it's strengths, whether it's weaknesses? Again, that is a common tool that can be used really throughout the strategic planning process on any aspect of your business that you want to kind of make sure you're looking at from several different angles. With respect to market analysis specifically, Porter's 5 forces is a common technique for evaluating all aspects of your business. It takes a look at your buyers, both your current and potential customers of your products and services. It looks at your suppliers, the basis for those products and services. How is that changing? How is that affecting your business? You look at your competitors. Who are you competing with for your business? What are your relative strengths and weaknesses with respect to that competition? When it comes to substitutes, you can think of that as almost another form of competition. It's what's an alternative, what could replace your business with your clients, essentially what outside sources can get you outside the box and think about what things could come into your market and potentially disrupt you. And then barriers is kind of the opposite of that. What is preventing other options from being available to the customer? So even considering that within a market might lend itself to how well positioned or what you need to think about or take advantage of if there's a significant barrier to entry in the market that you should be fully taking advantage of with respect to your customers. All right. So those are some tools for analyzing your business from individual aspects of your business and from a market perspective. There's also something called the business model canvas when it comes to reviewing your offering, be it a product or a packaged service. A business model canvas is a good tool because it kind of offers a holistic view of that part of your business with elements that describe your value proposition, your infrastructure, your customers, and the financial aspects of that offering. So as kind of depicted in this diagram in the middle, you start with the value proposition, and that's the collection of product services that your business offers to meet your customers' needs. On the left, you're asked to look at the infrastructure, which consists of key activities, resources, and partners that are most important to executing that value proposition. And on the right side, you capture the customer segment, the type of relationship that you want with the customer, the channels to reach that customer, and what customer segments that they represent. And then underneath, the underpinning is then taking a look at the finance and the cost structure of the business model, that particular offering. How is it creating income, and what are the costs associated with that income for each offering, each segment that you're going after.
Hey, Jack, if I can just jump in there.
Yeah.
I know that Patrick's got his hand up. I don't know if he had a question. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about the business model canvas. So we're using pretty much all of the tools that Jack's going to introduce. We're going to use those with clients. And this business model canvas, I think, is probably a really good one. There's a lot of integrators that I get asked the question, do you think we should get into products? And we've got a bunch of engineers that we're working on projects. There's some common themes in that projects. We've probably spent 50, 60, maybe $100,000. We've come up with something that we think is a product. And once you start, if you feel like you're in that position, then you take a look at the business model canvas, run it through the business model canvas, and you'll see that that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what is a business model around a specific product. And a lot of people have heard me say in the past, you might have spent $100,000 and think you have a product, but if you don't have $2 million in the bank, don't even consider it, because the real cost is actually in the rest of these boxes that the business model canvas kind of brings to light. So great, it's a great tool for analyzing a segment of your business as much as the business as a whole.
Okay, so once you've assessed your markets, your business, your offerings, you may want to take a look at a strategy map, which is a communication tool that depicts the objectives based on 4 perspectives for communicating these objectives to your organization. First of all, it looks from a financial perspective. How much will it cost you to achieve the objectives? What kind of are the current assets and new resources that will be required for those objectives? And then how much value do you anticipate being able to create for your customer? Then you look at from the customer's perspective, price, quality, and so on. What are the implications there? Then you look at it from an internal processes perspective. Again, kind of what is required within the organization to achieve those objectives. And finally, from a more the people perspective, what do your people within your organization need to be successful, not only from a kind of human capital perspective, but from a learning and growth, what additional things, activities, training, et cetera, need to be done to be able to achieve these objectives. It's just a way to not only think through all aspects of what it's going to take to achieve these objectives, but also then communicate to the organization. A well-designed strategy map, your employees can understand the overall strategy, and then it gets everyone on the same page, and it's just important. It allows them to see from these different perspectives how their jobs can impact the achievement of the overall objectives.
Yeah, just like the business model canvas is a good one-page document, and that's kind of where we go to. We're not interested in strategic planning that's going to put out a 20 or 30-page document. We're trying to get something down to very succinct. And the business model canvas shows you in one page, here's the business model for this particular product or offering. The strategy map is a one-page document that says, this is our strategy. This is how we're going to the market. And it looks at it from those four different perspectives. A lot of companies will put together a strategy map, and they'll use that even during the recruiting process. They'll sit down with the people and say, okay, here's who we are. Do you see yourself fitting in this organization? A lot of companies will have it as part of the onboarding, the strategy map that gets handed out to the employees, and they keep it at their desk. Okay, this is the company. This is the direction that we're going. So a good one-page summary of who the company is.
All right. Often associated with a strategy map, a balanced scorecard can provide then a structured report that can be used by the managers to keep track of the activities intended to fulfill the company objectives. So it gives you a tool so that you can monitor and control the actions towards these objectives and associated consequences if they are. Balanced scorecard works well if you have really well-defined objectives, measurable targets, and specific action items. The concept of it being balanced is really that it should be balanced across the perspectives and the aforementioned strategic map. Balanced scorecards are also beneficial in helping you set triggers for your business, particularly in difficult times, because they are often easier to set and develop what your contingency plan is in advance, rather than wait till you're actually in the situation and try to figure out in the chaos of the moment how your business is going to react to certain triggers being set.
Yeah, I kind of look at the triggers as being similar to a prenuptial agreement. It's a lot easier to have that conversation when the relationship is positive and friendly and stuff like that. But I've seen people set up triggers and say, okay, when we hit, let's say for instance it's sales. If our sales exceed by this much, then these are the specific things we're going to do. Or if our sales fall behind by this much, these are the very specific things that we're going to do. And having that conversation, as Jack said, when you're not in the heat of the moment, is a whole lot easier than scrambling when you get to the realization that, oh my goodness, we're not going to make the budget this year because our sales are off, or whatever, whether that's utilization or whatever key performance indicator you have in your balanced scorecard.
So we've covered some individual tools and how they can be used for specific parts of your strategic planning process. If you're looking for an overall methodology, we'd recommend that you consider Traction by Gino Wickman. In his book, Traction, Gino provides what's called the Vision and Traction Organizer, the VTO, which is useful to assist you in your strategic planning process. In the first part, he guides you through establishing your core values, what he calls your focus, your 10-year target, and then a strategy for how to get you there. So let's take a look at each of these in a little more detail.
Yeah, Jack, while you're changing the slide, one of the things, all of the tools that we talked about up until now are just good tools, but they don't really walk you through strategic planning. And that's one of the things I like about Traction is that it's a process. It walks you through the strategic planning process. And you can add to that by, for instance, maybe creating a strategy map, and the strategy map is going to define your longer-term vision of the company. So the tools are great, but the Traction provides you with that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, so as I said, where Traction starts out, the first thing it guides you through is defining your core values. Now, people often want to skip defining their core values and just jump straight to the business plan. I don't know, maybe as engineers we feel like, oh, it's too touchy-feely, but we, Exotech, strongly believes that defining your core values is a must-do. Because your core values guide the behavior of your organization and determine if you're on the right path, you're accomplishing your goals consistent with those core values. And the good thing is once you've defined your core values, you can really make it part of a thriving culture by first of all holding your leaderships accountable to those core values. And then by having your managers hire, review, and perhaps even fire according to those values, and then building in ways to kind of recognize and reward people for those values. It's a good practice to kind of really ingrain those in the culture of the organization. So let's take a look at how you can go about defining core values. So when we're working with clients to define their core values, we often see different types of core values. In Patrick Lencioni's book called The Advantage, he asserts that there's 4 value types. Now, core values are the ones that are inherent and lie at the heart of your organization's identity. They already exist, and they don't really change over time. You'll know when you've identified those core values correctly when it's almost like you're willing to take them too far. You're beholden to them and even willing in some sense to be punished for sticking to those values because they're so core to how your company operates. But he also makes a good point, and you should, when you're going through defining core values, not confuse them with the other types. One of them being permission to play values. These are really the minimum required standards for your business. Although they are extremely important, they don't serve to clearly define or differentiate your organization from others. Things like honesty, integrity, respect for others. Very important, but their permission to play or table stakes, everyone will have to have those to be successful in your business and your market, so they don't really differentiate you. Also, that makes the point that there's aspirational values. They're ones that you may want to have, you wish you had, or believe you must develop that in your organization to maximize your success. But since these are neither natural or inherent, if you're going to make those one of your core values, you're going to have to purposely insert them into your culture. So don't confuse aspirational values. You know, it's kind of a frequent mistake. You need to make the distinction between them and know which ones you can count on and which ones you're actually going to have to actively work on to build within the organization. And then last but not least, there are sometimes accidental values, which can be evident in an organization, aren't really intended, probably not even really good for the organization. So you have to kind of guard against them. It's like the opposite of the aspirational ones that you want to try to insert. These are ones that you really want to try to remove over time. But it's important to acknowledge an accidental value if it exists, and then go to work on what can you do to have that change so it's no longer part of the core, so to speak. All right, so we included this slide in here. These are examples of core values. Not really going to go through all of them. These are ones that are listed in the traction book, so you can, in addition to referring back to these slides, we'll get them up on our website. You can also find them in the book. So once you've established your core values, here is something that we would recommend that you do with your core values, just to illustrate the kind of importance of your core values, is go through this People Analyzer, which is also available through the Traction website there. It's a free download. A pretty simple tool, but it allows you to rate your leaders according to your core values. Now, why would you do this? First of all, it clarifies what is meant by the core values. I mean, it's particularly if you've just defined your core values, using this People Analyzer can kind of see whether or not you've really identified them correct and vet them out with your leadership. And, quite frankly, make sure that your leaders exhibit those core values, and then hold them accountable to that. And then in doing so, they can then in turn align the rest of the organization and hold their people accountable for these core values. So we've seen this People Analyzer used as part of a review process, even in situations where it's really not working with an employee because there are differences with the core values. This can help obviate where there's a fundamental lack of alignment to either correct behavior or help the employee see that they should look for opportunities outside of the core values and the culture that you're establishing at your company.
Yeah, Jack, if I can jump in here. So, yeah, just in terms of the tools, so you can see that the rows are the names of the individual employees and the columns are the individual values, and then you just score accordingly. And clearly in this particular company, Sally Jones should probably not be part of the company because she doesn't have any real alignment with the core values. George, maybe we can get him to where we need him to be. Ideally, we'd like to have him all pluses or maybe one or two plus minuses, but not all plus minuses. The exercise of going through this, I can't stress it enough. Once you've come up with your core values, have the leadership go through this. It requires a certain level of personal vulnerability, but if your leadership team can't do that, then you probably need to take a look at your leadership team and determine whether or not there's a sufficient level of trust on the leadership team to actually move the company forward. So it's a tough exercise, but it's a very worthwhile exercise. And then you can take it down a level, to the next level of people. As Jack said, helps get clarity around what do we mean by these values, but it also helps to figure out whether or not you got the right people on the bus.
Okay, so next let's talk about defining your focus, which consists of two things. It's your purpose and your niche. With respect to your purpose, or some people say your passion or your cause, Wickman suggests that, first of all, it should not be too business or market focused. He actually offers a checklist, which you can look up. It says that you should be able to state it in 3 to 7 words and in simple language. It should be big and bold and have what he calls the aha effect, meaning when you hear it, of course, that makes sense. And it should come from the heart and resonate with both you and your customers. And finally, it's not just about money, and it's not just a goal. It's bigger than that. It's a mission. So I worked at National Instruments for 30 years. Their mission statement is to improve the world by empowering engineers and scientists. So if I put it out as, okay, let's take a look. Does it meet the checklist? It's actually 8 words, not 7, so maybe a little bit long. It's a relatively simple language. I think it's big and bold and have the aha effect of, okay, you can improve the world by empowering engineers and scientists. If you know NI, it certainly comes from the heart and involves, everyone, not only the employees there, but the customers. And it's not really about money. It's a bigger goal. So I'd probably give them a check mark as a good example of here's a mission statement worth considering. Then the second thing is with respect to your focus is your niche. It's really what you do better than anyone else. If you can identify that, then your niche will help you make decisions that are consistent with, real value to the customers. If there's a business opportunity and it's not in your niche, then it's less likely to serve your customers, and you should probably either not do it or think long and hard before doing it, because it's going to be outside your niche. Second thing about your niche is ideally it's something that's difficult for your competitors to claim. In fact, you'd like it to be such that your competitors have to claim the opposite. For instance, if your competitors can't match you on high quality, they have to tout being lower cost. And then this third point is when you're determining your niche, consider that companies profit from their core. Alex Davern, the president and CEO of NI, is fond of saying your best performing business unit is most likely the most under potential. So the concept is, double down where you can and invest more in your core business rather than stray to adjacencies too soon. I also put down here, NI recently redefined their niche to be the leader in software-based automated test and automated measurement systems. If we put it up against this criterion again, I think that is consistent with what clients expect of National Instruments. At least the software-defined aspect has been a differentiator for them, so it's hard for their competitors to claim that. And it's certainly, they've been in the automated test and automated measurement business for a long time, so it's refocusing on the core of their business. So again, probably a good statement of a focus of their niche, and will hopefully serve them well. All right, I want to be a little sensitive to time, so we want to move on. The next thing that is in the traction book is about your market strategy to accomplish your vision and whatnot. And we quite frankly just don't have enough time to talk about this. So you're asked to look at your target market, develop your 3 uniques, consider what is your proven process and your guarantee. So rather than dive into this, just kind of at a high level, our advice when developing the market strategy is don't try to be all things to all people. Rather create a focus so that your marketing and sales efforts can really differentiate you so that you can stand out to your desired customers, not only your current customers, but customers that you want. Really focus on what's going to be a differentiation for you and valued by the customer rather than something that's very generic and doesn't get you literally traction.
Yeah, Jack,
Okay.
I always advise people that if you don't know what percentage of the market you haven't focused tightly enough on your market.
Yeah, good point as well. Thanks, Don. Okay, so let's start shifting gears then to, okay, how do you go from the strategic planning to getting the desired outcomes? As George Patton says here in this quote, a good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. So here are some of the key components to turning your vision into reality. From an internal perspective, you need to make sure that you have the proper organizational alignment with your strategic plan and that you have the accountability within your organization to execute on your strategic plan. And then externally, consider, you need effective communication with your clients so that they're clear where you're going and what you're offering, and your partners as well. For instance, make sure that your key vendors understand what your strategy is and know how that fits into their overall strategy as well. Don, anything to add there?
Yeah, the previous slide we talked about marketing, and marketing is a critical thing, and it's something that as integrators we probably are not the best at. And as this slide kind of alludes to, is once you've got through your strategic plan, then marketing makes a whole lot of sense because now you know who you want to target. And if you haven't done your strategic planning, then how are you going to communicate to the client base? I mean, it's going to be spread all over the map. So I think, I think that get through this step, then engage your marketing, and close business.
Yeah. All right. So let's go back to the vision and traction organizer just to kind of start boiling this down, so to speak. So you can kind of see the remaining steps there is take that kind of longer term vision and your kind of 10-year, where you want to be 10 years from now, and start backing that down. So what is your 3-year objectives? What does that picture like? And that should be more tangible, essentially the stepping stones that you need to get here in the next 3 years to really get to where you want to be in your longer term vision. From that, they back you down to the 1 year plan, specifically a 1 year plan. What are the goals that you need to accomplish in the next year? And then actually defining what what they call your quarterly rocks and your issues. And we'll take a few minutes to discuss those things in particular. But first, with respect to the 1 year goal, the 1 year goals, you should establish specific performance metrics, commonly known as KPIs, for monitoring your progress. Note that they may not be a KPI for every single element of your business, just those that are most critical to your success, or perhaps establishing one because there's a new aspect of your business and you want to measure your progress towards that new aspect of your business. The KPIs essentially become your scorecard or a dashboard. It's best if you can get them down on a single page. I mean, a dashboard, like you think of in front of your car, has the vital information about how your information is or your vehicle is performing. Same concept with a dashboard or a scorecard is, can you hopefully on a single page see the key elements of your business and how it's performing. I put up here as a quick side note an example from a company called APNA. During a business consultation, they showed me this as their dashboard. I was particularly curious. It was boiled down to, essentially green and red indicators, including things like for projects. So I asked the quality officer, who was affectionately known as the evil metrics woman by her colleagues, when is that green? And she said, her response was, if 100% of the projects are on time and on budget, it's green. Otherwise, it's red. To which I replied, has it ever been green? And she said no. So I kind of politely told her that I didn't know any system integrators for which that would be true. So kind of moral to the story is when you come up with your dashboard and your KPIs, make sure that you are setting realistic goals. They can be stretch goals, but make them realistic so that there's a sense of making progress to or achieving those goals. Got anything to add there?
Yeah, lots, but we're running out of time, so I won't.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. So from that that yearly plan and the scoreboard that you've created for your business, you need to then say, well, what are the, in traction term, what are the rocks, which are really just the priorities on a quarterly basis. So what are the 3 to 7 most important things you need to accomplish in the next 90 days? Meaning you as your business, as your business grows, you may create company rocks that are important to accomplish in the next 90 days for your company. If you're big enough, you may set departmental rocks for individual departments. And actually even individuals can have the same, okay, what is my 90-day priorities or whatnot. But translating those larger objectives and goals down into tangible things, priorities that need to be worked on in the next 90 days. If we had a word of advice, and this is based on lots of experience, I'll say not only with our clients, but ourselves as well, is make your goals SMART. I think most people are familiar with that acronym: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. The easiest way to miss a target is not having it well defined. And the poorer that these rocks are defined, the less likely they're going to be taken care of in the next 90 days. Anything to add there, Don?
Yeah, it's just the example that you had. There's a great example about, oh yeah, we're going to improve sales. That's not a very smart.
Exactly.
But if we're going to add $2 million of qualified target market opportunities and the estimated close date before, that's a SMART type of objective.
Yep, absolutely. Then the other thing, and I really like this about the traction, is that there's actually an issues component of your business. They acknowledge that it's just as important to take a hard look at what is holding your company back, as well as defining those goals and priorities themselves. So from an obstacle perspective, what's currently preventing you from achieving your vision? Are there concerns that might be, until they're resolved, won't really allow people to be committed and move forward to achieving your vision? It could even be opportunities that end up being essentially distractions. They're not part of your core vision, but there's a thrownness to, oh, here's a new shiny object, and that can get you off track and keep you from achieving your larger goals and your vision and whatnot. So in this area, we do see successful companies really define a process for identifying issues, having a way to discuss them and have them resolved as part of their ongoing strategic business process is taking time to say, okay, what is really holding us back, being able to discuss those and come up with the best way to resolve them. All right. So I'll say kind of the last area that we wanted to touch on is be sure that you have a meeting cadence in this execution aspect of your strategic plan. So that starts with your company meeting, where you reinforce your core values and it gives you an opportunity to announce your objectives for the coming year, as well as update the entire company on your progress towards those objectives throughout the year. But don't just stop with, a company level meeting. You need to establish quarterly meetings to set those rocks that we talked about, as well as resolve those major issues, so that, again, as we described, you don't wait till you get to the end and realize, oh, we haven't really accomplished what we set out to do. And even take that down to weekly meetings to kind of keep everything on track. By the way, Traction does have specific suggestions on how to run each of these type of meetings. So if you don't already have something in place, again, this is a guide or a way to help you make sure you're establishing kind of cadence of meetings you need to make sure that you're moving your business forward and not getting swamped by just daily activities.
Hey, Jack, one of the things I'd add in here is block a bit of time on your schedule so that you actually do have these meetings. If you just say, oh, yeah, I'll get to that, you won't get to that. So pick a time in the week where you're going to have a 90-minute weekly, what they would call the level 10 meeting, or pick a quarterly period that you're going to actually do your quarterly review of progress against your strategy. I know that I get a lot of pushback on this for the people just entering into this, the rhythm of strategic planning. But I also know that if you don't do the regular cadence, we'll be back in a quarter and nothing will have happened. So you just can't stress enough the importance of being able to stay on top of it and actually plan to do the work. It's like a work breakdown structure for a project.
Absolutely. And that kind of brings us to, we're coming up on the end of the hour, so we want to be sensitive of time. So just kind of parting thoughts. Hopefully we've kind of convinced you of the importance of having a formal strategic planning process, as well as some ways to kind of get started or improve your existing process. So just some parting thoughts. If you're not doing strategic planning, our first advice is just do it. Don't make the mistake of getting so busy working in your business on the daily management activities that you don't take the time to work on your business and have a process for doing that rather than it being ad hoc. Secondly, as we tried to focus here at the latter part of the presentation, is really work on the execution of your strategic plan. Don't think of it as an annual single event, but rather an integral part of the ongoing process that you continually take a look at if you're moving forward on your business plan, if you need to modify it, and then use it throughout the year to kind of drive the organization and activities so that you're making progress. And then last, with roles and responsibilities in your organization, don't just rely on organizational structure. We'd recommend creating an accountability chart like the one that's shown here, which is more about the roles within an organization and who match these up to your business goals and your KPIs. Who's ultimately responsible? And it should be one person that's ultimately responsible for seeing that an objective is met. That doesn't mean that person has to do all the work, but somebody that is accountable to seeing that particular goal that's been identified as something important for the company to achieve, who's responsible to make sure that gets done. And then check that in the organization. Do people understand how they're being measured, and do they understand how the work that they're doing is going to impact the organization and impact the company achieving its business goals?
Hey, Jack, I think one of the neatest things about the whole Traction is this concept of visionary integrator. And I get that we don't have a whole lot of time to spend on that, but I really encourage you to look through those two different types of characters. The industry is actually got a lot of visionaries. Where we're running short is the integrators, and I think the ratio typically is something like 10 to 1. There's 10 visionaries to 1 integrator. The integrator is the gal that's going to actually get the stuff done. They're going to be the the coach and the referee across all of the different departments to make sure that, yes, we are moving forward on our strategy. So a pretty key role, and typically not what the entrepreneur that started the company, they're not very good at. The entrepreneur's new idea every day. That's not the kind of person that's going to move you forward in a very structured fashion.
Awesome. So that really brings us to a conclusion. We do have just a few minutes here. If there's any, additional questions, or one thing we like to ask is what did you get out of this session? What did you find most valuable that you're going to take away and implement in your organization?
And one of the questions that came up was whether or not this is being recorded, and this session is being recorded, so we'll be able to get access to that. So questions, and Colin, to put the questions in, they just type them into the Q&A box.
Yeah, if you just you write it in that chat box, we'll be able to see it if anyone has any questions.
A quiet bunch.
All right. Well, I guess if there aren't any questions, we can kind of wrap it up for now. First of all, I guess, we'll start with really thank you guys for your time. We appreciate, system integration time is often feels overloaded and weighty. So, taking some time out of your day to spend with us and let us share some thoughts with you. We hope you got value out of this, and know that we're here and available if you feel like strategic planning is useful and you'd like some assistance in either getting that started or keeping it going, then let us know. We're happy to help.
All right, thank you. And on behalf of CSIA, I would like to thank Jack and Don for this informative discussion. I'd also like to thank all of those attending. We hope you found this webinar informational. When you close out of the webinar, a link will pop up to a brief evaluation. We would appreciate it if you could take a moment to share your feedback with us. And we'd also like to remind you, I know that you brought it up, that a recording of this webinar will be available for viewing within 30 days of this event. Please visit the CSIA website to view this recording for a past webinar you may have missed. We have a lot of them up there. And this concludes our program for today. Once again, thank you for joining us, and have a good one.